suddenly understood and his eyes widened. Little Jibo, you are secretly picking up girls? We thought you were sleeping in bed recently. Seeing his roommates scolding him one after another, Ji Bakyu was so anxious that he kept scratching his head. His yellow hair was messy. Oh, I'm afraid of disappointing you. If I wasn't afraid of your jealousy, I would have told you long ago. Just as the three of them were in a mess, Shin Yang suddenly spoke. Xiao Jibo, what did you say about the girl with the ID Shin Sha shoes, in that day? Ji Bakyu was stunned, then shook his phone proudly. Yes, why, do you know him? Chen Yang pretended to shake his head, then nodded. No, but I think I know who she is. Is it true? The three of them looked at Shin Yang in unison, their eyes filled with gossip. Chen Yang coughed lightly and said mysteriously. If I remember correctly, she should be Shen Shuying from the School of Economics and Management. Fuck. Ji Bakyu exclaimed. Old Chen, you actually know her? Tell me, what does she look like? Is she pretty? Chen Yang's mouth corners slightly raised. Yeah, she's pretty. She has a nice personality, lively and cheerful, and very popular. I'll go. Fu Chen was shocked. Old Chen, you are so good at hiding things, you even know her personality? Liu Daonji also followed suit. Could it be that there is some history between you two? Chen Yang waved his hands, with a helpless smile on his face. Don't make wild guesses, we just met once before. A chance encounter means meeting someone sitting next to you 1 year ago, and rejecting their love confession 3 times. Ji Bakyu hugged Chen Yang's shoulders, with stars in his eyes. Brother, no, godfather. Since you know him, you must give me some advice. Chen Yang pondered for a moment, and suddenly his eyes lit up. How about this? I heard that Shen Shuying really likes spicy hot pot. How about you ask her out for dinner? Eating spicy hot pot on a date with a girl? Is that credible? Don't interrupt, it's definitely reliable. Chen Yang continued. You can just say, I heard there's a new spicy hot pot restaurant at the back door. It tastes good, do you want to go and try it together? Wow. Fu Chen exclaimed. Old Chen, I didn't realize you are quite knowledgeable. Chen Yang raised his eyebrows proudly. That's professional. Okay. And then what? Ji Bakyu asked, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. Chen Yang continued. After the appointment, here comes the key point. You have to act like a gentleman and don't start chatting right away. Which will make her feel that you are in a hurry, just chat about school first. And then what? The three of them were very curious and didn't listen to the class so seriously. Oh, it's hard to explain in a few words, little Jibo. Bring your phone over, I'll play for you. Chen Yang took Ji Bakyu's phone, clicked on the homepage of Shinsha Shuxin first, and confirmed that it was Shen Shuying. Don't worry, I'll make an appointment for you. Since her roommate is interested in her, she might as well go with the flow and save herself some trouble. The light from the library shone on Shen Shuying's textbook, but she had no intention of studying. The message on the mobile phone screen left her deeply confused. I heard there's a new, spicy hot pot restaurant at the back door. It tastes good, do you want to go and try it together? The person who sent the message was a boy named Ji Bakyu, who was a passerby in the 5th row that day, and seemed to be a student in the computer department next door. They had been chatting for a few weeks, but she was not familiar with him and didn't understand why he suddenly asked her out. Shen Shuying bit the tip of her pen and fell into deep thought. To be honest, she is a little discouraged about love now. Well, she sighed softly, and the figure that haunted her dreams involuntarily emerged in her mind. Chen Yang. The boy who has a sunny smile, but is always distant. He sat behind me during my senior year of high school. This might be the closest I've ever been to him in my life. I once mustered up the courage to confess my love to him, but was rejected. Not only that, she tried to approach him twice more, but was rejected each time. Once, she pretended to meet Chen Yang. I chanced in the library and took the initiative to invite him to do homework together. However, Chen Yang just smiled politely, said that he was still busy preparing for the postgraduate entrance examination, and left in a hurry. It's only the 2nd semester of my freshman year. Are you going to take the postgraduate entrance exam? After 3 failed attempts, Shen Shuying completely gave up. She told herself that it was time to let go of this unrequited love. But, Shen Shuying stared at the phone screen and said to herself, should I agree? On the one hand, she is somewhat resistant to feelings. After the last failure, she didn't want to invest easily again. Moreover, she knew nothing about this boy named Ji Bakyu, and it seemed unwise to rashly agree to a date with him. But on the other hand, there was a small voice deep inside saying, maybe it's time to move on? Shen Shuying bit her lip. She remembered what her best friends often said. The best way to get over a broken heart is to start a new one. Besides, she consoled herself, it's just a spicy hot pot, not a formal date. Shen Shuying really likes eating spicy hot pot. How did the other person know that I like to eat spicy hot pot? Maybe it was just a coincidence. If that's the case, the two of them should get along well. At this moment, the phone vibrated again. It was a new message from Ji Bakyu. If it's not convenient for you, we can go another day. But I heard that the spicy hot pot in this restaurant is really good. It would be a pity to miss it. Seeing this message, Shen Shuying couldn't help but laugh. This boy is quite good at talking. He not only gave the customer a way out, but also whetted people's appetite. Well, she said to herself, just treat yourself. I was exhausted during the recent finals week. Taking a deep breath, Shen Shuying finally made up her mind and slid her fingers quickly across the screen. Okay, I want to try it too. After sending the message, Shen Shuying felt her heartbeat suddenly quicken. She didn't know whether this decision would make her regret, but at this moment she only felt a hint of expectation quietly sprouting in her heart. Maybe this is youth, she whispered to herself, full of unknowns, yet making people want to try. Next Wednesday, after Chen Yang sent the last message on Ji Bakyu's phone, he said done in a cool manner and returned the phone to Ji Bakyu. Ji Bakyu took the phone and began to review the chat records of Chen Yang playing for him. The big guy is on the account. It's really the big guy who was on the account. He suddenly burst into an earth-shattering scream. She said yes, she really said yes. Fukin and Liu Daonji rushed over from their respective positions upon hearing the sound. What's going on? Fukin looked confused. Xiaojibo, did you win the lottery? Liu Daonji widened his eyes. Ji Bakyu was so excited that he spoke incoherently. Lao Chen's cell phone. Shen Shuying promised spicy hot pot. Calm down, calm down. Chen Yang patted Ji Bakyu's shoulder. Don't get excited, take a breath. After Ji Bakyu calmed down a little, Chen Yang explained to the other two. Nothing, I just asked a girl out for spicy hot pot for Jibo. Oh my god, Fukin exclaimed, old Chen, you must have opened your third eye. Liu Daonji nodded repeatedly, that's right, it's amazing. Ji Bakyu finally regained his ability to speak. He held the phone in both hands, as if it were some rare treasure. Lao Chen, you are my adopted parent. No, you are my real father. Chen Yang was startled by this sudden recognition, and waved his hands quickly. Oh, don't do that, I'm going to shorten my life, we are brothers. No. Ji Bakyu hugged Chen Yang tightly, pretending to be his apprentice. From now on, you are my godfather. I, Ji Bakyu, have been wandering for half my life, and I only regret that I have never met a wise leader. To express my gratitude, I will provide you with supper for a week from today. Sprite and crayfish every day. Chen Yang raised his eyebrows, a barely perceptible smile appearing at the corner of his mouth. He pulled away Ji Bakyu, who was clinging to him, and acted like a master. Hey, kid, you're too polite, we are brothers, why should we care about such a small matter? He paused deliberately, and then said slowly, one night snack is enough. Oh my god! Fu Qin exclaimed, old Chen, you are so cool. Liu Daonji nodded repeatedly, that's right, he is definitely the best brother of the year. Ji Bakyu was so moved that tears welled up in his eyes. Godfather, no, Lao Chen, you are so loyal. Chen Yang waved his hand, with an unfathomable smile on his face. Don't be so cheesy. We are brothers. Watching Ji Bakyu dancing with joy as he came up with a date plan, Chen Yang secretly breathed a sigh of relief. He didn't want Shen Shuying to bother him again at all. Now that Ji Bakyu was chasing her, it couldn't be better. Chen Yang looked out the window with a slight smile on his face. He prayed in his heart, little Jibo, you must take down Shen Shuying, otherwise I will be in trouble. Chen Yang suddenly asked, by the way, I was just about to ask you guys, do you know any interesting clubs in school? Those traditional clubs are a bit too boring. The roommates looked at each other. Chen Yang thought that if he wanted to cure Xingyi's depression, he must not let her have only him as her social circle. He wanted Xingyi to try to integrate into human activities. After all, humans are social animals. If I stay alone all the time, I will definitely go crazy. Ji Bakyu was greatly favored by Chen Yang, so he naturally actively offered suggestions. He shook his striking yellow hair, and said thoughtfully, well, I heard that the photography club has been quite active recently. They often organize field trips, and it seems that you can learn a lot of professional skills. Oh? That sounds good. Chen Yang became interested. Anything else? Liu Daonji stretched his body. His strong muscles were particularly obvious in the movement. How is the basketball club? I am in it. We have training and games every week. The atmosphere is very good. I often communicate with other schools and make many friends. This is not suitable for girls, Chen Yang thought. Fu Qin pushed his glasses, and a hint of excitement flashed in his eyes behind the lenses. I personally recommend Food Club. They not only research various delicacies, but also sell snacks and drinks during school activities. You can learn cooking skills and earn some pocket money at the same time, killing two birds with one stone. Moreover, the president of Food Club is Liu Yuyan, who is ranked first among the school beauties. Food Club? Chen Yang's eyes lit up. This sounds great. What exactly does it do? Fu Qin explained enthusiastically. They will hold food sharing sessions and teach everyone how to make some simple and delicious dishes. Whenever there are big events at school, such as sports meets or cultural festivals, they set up stalls to sell homemade snacks and drinks. I heard that students who participate can not only learn cooking skills, but also practice marketing and management skills. As Chen Yang listened, his eyes became brighter and brighter. These clubs, especially the food club, are indeed much more interesting than traditional literary clubs, chess and card clubs, etc. Chen Yang always felt that guiding Xingyi to get in touch with other things little by little gave him a sense of nurturing. He began to imagine that if he took Xingyi to participate in these activities, especially the food club, it might help her build some social connections. This food club is really interesting, Chen Yang said. Do you know how to join it? Yu Dayanji smiled and said, why, you're interested in cooking? Are you trying to please some girl? Chen Yang has not yet confessed to his roommates about his relationship with Lin Xingyi, mainly because he is too lazy to explain, and does not want them to make a fuss. Chen Yang smiled and shook his head, but in his heart he was thinking about Xingyi's smiling face. Ah, no, I just think it's interesting. Besides, it never hurts to be able to cook a few good dishes. Fu Qin added. If you're really interested, there seems to be a recruitment event for food club near the end of finals week. Can you go check it out then? Some clubs recruit new members at the end of the semester, while others recruit new members at the beginning of the next semester. Chen Yang nodded, then shook his head. No need, I don't know when I can go there. I'm afraid I'll let you down. This is of course complete nonsense. At this moment, the dormitory head, Yu Dayanji, suddenly slapped his strong thigh, making a pop sound, which scared everyone else. Brothers, Yu Dayanji stood up, his sturdy figure casting a shadow under the light of the dormitory. We haven't hung out together in a while. At this time, Fu Qin sent a message in the dormitory group at a very timely moment. Comrade Fu Qin pointed out, and we need to find a source of dormitory funding as soon as possible to solve the problems of dormitory residents having difficulty eating, sleeping and playing games. In addition, Yu Dayanji, the dormitory head, also emphasized that he would be responsible for dormitory hygiene issues until graduation, and would implement the new era concept of being civilized and setting a new trend, and contribute to the harmonious time of university. After Fu Qin sent this paragraph, Yu Dayanji picked him up like a little chicken. After a while of making a fuss, the four of them went out for a midnight snack together. Chen Yang accompanied Lin Xingyi for lunch every day for about 3 months. Final exam. Lin Xingyi gently closed the pen cap and let out a long breath. The final exam for the last professional course is finally over. There is another exam in a few days, so I can have a holiday soon. I can't take a break because I still have a small semester to attend after the exams. It's finally over, Lin Xingyi murmured to herself, rubbing her sore eyes. The students around me started packing their bags, and the sound of chairs being moved and low conversations could be heard in the classroom. Lin Xingyi slowly packed her things, thinking about something absently. I looked outside the classroom door, but didn't see any familiar figure. I have an exam today. Will Chen Yang come to see me today? This thought suddenly popped up and even Lin Xingyi was shocked. She shook her head, trying to shake the thought off. What am I thinking? Lin Xingyi put on her school bag and followed the crowd towards the classroom door. She lowered her head and hesitated as she walked whether to take out her cell phone to send a message to Chen Yang. Just when her fingers were about to touch the phone in her pocket, suddenly a pair of hands covered her eyes from behind. Ah! Lin Xingyi screamed and froze in place. Guess who I am? A familiar voice sounded in her ears, with a hint of pride. Lin Xingyi's heartbeat accelerated instantly. She knew who the voice belonged to. Chen Yang. She whispered, afraid she might have guessed wrong. Correct. Chen Yang let go of his hand and walked around to Xingyi with a bright smile on his face. As expected of our beautiful lady Xing, she can even guess this. The relationship between the two of them has become more natural than before. After being teased by him, Lin Xingyi's face instantly turned red with nervousness. She lowered her head, not daring to look directly into Chen Yang's eyes. Why are you here? She asked in a low voice, but in her heart, she was secretly happy about Chen Yang's appearance. Chen Yang scratched his head, looking nonchalant. I was just passing by and saw you getting out of class. Passing in reverse. Lin Xingyi looked up and glanced at the big boy who was a head taller than her, thinking that this excuse was too bad. The examination room she was assigned to this time was in the most remote corner of the school, so there was no chance for her to pass by. Chen Yang looked at Lin Xingyi's expression, which showed no expression at all. He guessed that she was not in a good mood. Yes, everyone is busy and anxious during finals week. As Chen Yang thought about this, his expression suddenly became serious. He took a deep breath, then, Chen Yang cleared his throat, and suddenly raised his voice. Attention, students. The students around stopped and looked over here curiously. Lin Xingyi looked at this familiar scene and felt her heart was about to jump out of her chest. Could he be? Today is the 105th day that I like Lin Xingyi. Chen Yang's voice echoed in the corridor, reaching everyone's ears clearly. In fact, Chen Yang didn't remember what day it was. He just checked the calendar on his phone in advance. These words are probably only true for 105 days. Time seemed to stand still at this moment, and Lin Xingyi widened her eyes. The students around were also stunned. Some began to whisper, while others looked at this side with envy. Lin Xingyi felt her face was so hot it was about to smoke. She wanted to find a crack in the ground to crawl into, but she couldn't help her heart beating faster. 105 days. He actually remembered it so clearly. Just when Lin Xingyi was still in shock and unable to recover, Chen Yang suddenly grabbed her hand. What are you standing there for? Run! He shouted, pulling Lin Xingyi towards the stairs. Lin Xingyi was startled by the sudden movement, but her body subconsciously followed Chen Yang and ran. The two of them quickly ran through the corridor, leaving a group of stunned classmates behind. Ah, Chen Yang, are you crazy? Lin Xingyi shouted as she ran, but there was an imperceptible tenderness in her voice. If you don't shout this semester, you won't have another chance. This is called starting and ending. Hearing Lin Xingyi's voice with a hint of smile, Chen Yang felt a little relieved. Based on Xingyi's situation, Chen Yang developed a method for her to prevent her mood from getting worse. First, go home less often, or not at all. Second, parents call and find an excuse to hang up quickly. Anyway, just try to escape from your parents as much as possible and reduce the pressure from them. They ran down the stairs, through the paths of the campus, and finally stopped under a big tree. Both were panting. I heard that exercise can improve your mood. You. How could you do this? Lin Xingyi leaned against the tree trunk, trying to calm her breathing. Everyone is watching. Chen Yang shrugged, looking nonchalant. Just watch it. Lin Xingyi lowered her head and covered her hot cheeks with her hair. When she got nervous, her eyes became moist, and the tip of her nose and the slightly upturned corners of her eyes turned red. And she couldn't hide it at all. Seeing this, Chen Yang decided not to tease her too much. I don't know if it was because I was running too fast or something else. She recalled the scene in the corridor just now, the surprised looks of her classmates. And Chen Yang. It was so embarrassing. I can't ever experience that kind of situation a second time. You really like me? Lin Xingyi asked in a low voice. With a hint of uncertainty in her voice. Chen Yang was stunned for a moment. He didn't expect Lin Xingyi to be so direct. This was the first time in such a long time. His original intention was to use other emotions to dilute Lin Xingyi's thoughts of suicide, and then slowly cure her depression so that she would not seek death again. Even if she says she likes him, she has to wait until her depression is cured. To be honest, this was the first time Chen Yang saw such a pretty girl like Lin Xingyi. Who doesn't like a pretty girl? Although Chen Yang is lustful, he is not a superficial person. In this situation, the only option is to return the problem. Chen Yang raised his eyebrows, with an exaggerated expression of surprise on his face. Did I not shout loud enough just now? Do you want me to shout it again for you? As he said this, he took a deep breath and pretended to shout again. Lin Xingyi panicked and quickly covered Chen Yang's mouth with her hand. No, you're crazy. The blush on her face had not yet faded, and she looked around, afraid of attracting more attention. Chen Yang was amused by Xingyi's reaction. He gently pulled Lin Xingyi's hand away and showed a sly smile. It seems that our beautiful Xing is still shy. Don't you worry. I won't shout again unless you want to hear it. Lin Xingyi glared at Chen Yang in embarrassment. You just like to play tricks on people. She looked angry, but there didn't seem to be any real anger in her tone. Chen Yang made an innocent expression. I call this a sweet talk skill. Okay. Besides, I came here from the Electronic Information Engineering exam room, just to give you a surprise. Your exam room is really remote. I don't know whether she was surprised or not, but Lin Xingyi was indeed frightened, and just now, although it was not the first time she had experienced this. Lin Xingyi then remembered that Chen Yang was indeed not in the same major as her. She couldn't help but feel curious. Then how do you know I finished the exam at this time today? How do you know the exam venue? Chen Yang showed a mysterious smile. Secret, how about it? Do you think I'm very powerful? Lin Xingyi rolled her eyes but couldn't help but smile. As long as Chen Yang doesn't want to say, Lin Xingyi can't ask. Lin Xingyi followed Chen Yang to the cafeteria. On the way, she quietly looked at the classmates around her and found that many people were looking at them. Xingyi, Chen Yang whispered, it seems like a lot of people are looking at us. To be more precise, I'm looking at Xingyi. After all, there are more men in the computer department. Chen Yang smiled and said. They finally discovered that there is such a beautiful lady in the computer department. You always hide yourself too well. Although Lin Xingyi suffers from depression, she is an adolescent girl after all. She felt a little proud when she was praised like this. She usually keeps her head down, rarely communicates with others, and wears a mask in crowded classrooms. Plus, since she didn't live on campus, few people noticed her. Lin Xingyi gently pushed Chen Yang to express her protest. Chen Yang and Lin Xingyi didn't go to the cafeteria where their roommates often went for meals, for fear of being caught on the spot. Chen Yang found a seat skillfully, and then went to line up for food. Xingyi sat in her seat, looking at Chen Yang's back, with a complex feeling in her heart. What on earth does he think of me? Lin Xingyi thought. Why does he treat me like this? The cafeteria was bustling with people, and the air was filled with the aroma of various foods. Chen Yang carried 2 plates and moved skillfully among the crowded crowd, and finally sat down steadily opposite Lin Xingyi. Here, your favorite braised pork. Chen Yang smiled and pushed one of the plates in front of Lin Xingyi. I specially asked for a little more for you. Lin Xingyi looked down at the plate, then looked up at Chen Yang, said thank you softly, then picked up her chopsticks and slowly began to eat. Not long after, Chen Yang finished his lunch in no time. He put down his chopsticks, supported his chin with both hands, and just stared at Xingyi. Lin Xingyi felt a little uncomfortable with Chen Yang's gaze and asked in a low voice, why are you looking at me? Chen Yang's mouth curled up into a wicked smile. Watching beautiful women eat is, of course, a feast for the eyes. This is the reward for my exclusive guardian plan. Lin Xingyi's face instantly turned redder. She poked the food on the plate and said angrily, why do you always say weird things? Vegetable. Chen Yang seemed to not know how to write the word, I'm sorry, and continued to talk nonsense. I'm telling the truth. Besides, watching you eat makes the food taste better. Lin Xingyi was both angry and amused. Slippery tongue. At this moment, Lin Xingyi seemed to remember something, looked up at Chen Yang and said, by the way, Chen Yang, tonight is the second psychological consultation time my mother has scheduled for me. About a month ago, Chen Yang went with her for the first time, and the effect didn't seem to be very good. Every time Lin Xingyi returned home, it seemed that all her previous efforts were greatly reduced. It's like the enemy's fountain, you will die if you enter it. Chen Yang thought about it. Considering the evening rush hour, we'd better leave at 5:40. I'll pick you up at 5:30. And then we'll take the subway together, which should ensure we arrive on time. Lin Xingyi nodded. Chen Yang was always laughing, but he was still quite reliable at times like this. Thank you, Chen Yang, Lin Xingyi said softly, I feel much better with you by my side. At this moment, Chen Yang's cell phone suddenly vibrated. He took out his phone and looked at it, with a strange expression on his face. What's wrong? Lin Xingyi asked curiously. Chen Yang handed the phone to Xingyi. See for yourself. Lin Xingyi took the phone and saw a post on the campus wall. I want to ask the girl who was loudly confessed to in the corridor, on the 5th floor of the 7th teaching building this morning. Does she have a boyfriend? A blurry photo of Lin Xingyi being dragged by Chen Yang was attached to the text. Here are some responses from other students. Didn't you see that a boy was pulling you away? You have no chance, brother, forget it. They haven't made an official announcement yet. I think I can give it a try. Li Xiaoling, a 22-year student majoring in electronic science and technology, invited a beautiful woman to dinner with him under his real name. She looks so pretty, why isn't she on the campus beauty poll? There must be something fishy going on. Lin Xingyi pouted, returned the phone to Chen Yang, and whispered, it's all your fault. Chen Yang took the phone and said with a smile, blame me? I'm helping you to increase your popularity. Do you want me to reply in that you're already in a relationship? Or is it that being single is more flirtatious? You dare. Lin Xingyi widened her eyes and pretended to snatch Chen Yang's phone. Chen Yang dodged nimbly. Okay, I won't tease you anymore. But seriously, don't you think this is quite interesting? Chen Yang thought Lin Xingyi was very interesting. She would react quite strongly to a slight teasing. She was much more fun than a mimosa. Maybe I had isolated myself before because of stress and depression. Chen Yang put away his phone, looked at the girl in front of him seriously, and said, Xingyi, I know you may not be used to this kind of attention, but you deserve to be seen and liked by more people. You are such an excellent person and you shouldn't always hide yourself. Lin Xingyi was a little overwhelmed by Chen Yang's sudden seriousness. Chen Yang wanted to take this opportunity to discuss with Xingyi whether or not to try to join some clubs. Let's wait until the psychological consultation is over, Chen Yang thought. After they finished their meal, they walked out of the cafeteria together. Then see you tonight? Lin Xingyi asked uncertainly. Chen Yang nodded. Well, see you tonight. Remember, call me anytime if you have anything. The evening sun shines through the curtains, casting a warm more-endeared color in Lin Xingyi's small rental house. Lin Xingyi sat on the edge of the bed, stroking the corner of her clothes with her white fingers, her eyes constantly wandering between the phone screen and the door. 17:29. 1 minute left until the agreed time. Chen Yang stood at the door of Lin Xingyi's rental house, planning to knock on the door at 30 seconds. Because the masters always enter the game at the right time. I also have to deal with those guys in the dormitory group. Ji Bakyu, Chen Yang, Godfather, let's go to the night market together tonight. Would you like to come? Chen Yang, no, every second counts in the postgraduate entrance examination. I need to review well. Liu Daonji, come on. Fu Qin. When it was time, so Chen Yang knocked on the door of Lin Xingyi's rental house. A few seconds later, there was a knock on the door. Open the door, your personal bodyguard is here. Chen Yang's voice came from outside the door, with a hint of teasing. Lin Xingyi was still looking forward to when Chen Yang would come. But the next second she just shook her head helplessly, stood up and opened the door. As soon as the door opened, Chen Yang was seen leaning against the door frame with a cynical smile on his face and in a strange posture. I haven't seen you for a few hours, did you miss me? Little star. Chen Yang's way of addressing Lin Xingyi changed again. Sometimes he called her by her name, sometimes he called her dear, and sometimes he called her little star. Are you ready? Chen Yang said as he walked into the house. Are you still struggling over what to wear? Seeing a doctor is not a date. Lin Xingyi retorted with a hint of anger. Do you think everyone is as casual as you? I have to say, this girl's room smells delicious. Chen Yang looked for the source of the smell and finally fixed his eyes on the bed in the bedroom. Isn't it a bit too vulgar to just go up and smell it like this? Chen Yang thought to himself, so he looked around and his eyes fell on a book on the desk. Oh, 100 Years of Solitude? I can't believe it. Our talented lady Xing has good taste. Lin Xingyi was packing some things. When she heard this, she looked up. Yeah, I've been watching it recently. Have you seen it? Chen Yang waved his hand. Come on. That stuff is too brain intensive. I prefer something more relaxing, like how to pick up girls on the subway. Lin Xingyi couldn't help laughing. You are just not serious. It is indeed much easier to get along with Chen Yang. I probably laugh more times in a day than in the previous year. People who love to laugh will not have bad luck. Because people with bad luck can't laugh. It's called a sense of humor, understand? Let's go. The subway will be too crowded if we don't leave soon. Are you still nervous? Chen Yang asked casually. He had seen a psychologist once before, so he should be fine. Lin Xingyi nodded, then shook her head. I can't really explain. It was the evening rush hour, and the platform was packed with people going home from get off work. Chen Yang and Xingyi were squeezed together and barely found a corner to stand. Wow, there are so many people. Chen Yang looked around. It seems we have to make a human sandwich. Lin Xingyi looked at him in confusion. What do you mean? Chen Yang said with a wicked smile. It means I'm in the middle, with you on one side, and the other passengers on the other side, so I can protect you from being crushed. Lin Xingyi blushed. Chen Yang had indeed created a small space for her where she wasn't squeezed around, so she didn't refute. The train slowly pulled into the platform, and the moment the door opened, a stream of people rushed in. Chen Yang grabbed Xingyi's wrist and said, follow closely. Don't get lost if you disappear. I won't be able to find another Xingdok I knew. They were squeezed so tightly that they could hardly move. Xingyi had to stick close to Chen Yang, almost leaning on his arms. Traffic in big cities is horrible. How is it? Do you feel safe? Chen Yang lowered his head and said to Xingyi, with a little pride in his tone. Luckily, it's me next to you, not the pervert on the train. Lin Xingyi seemed to be able to hear Chen Yang's strong heartbeat, even though it was very noisy outside. She lowered her head so that Chen Yang could not see her expression. Chen Yang was also vigilantly watching the other people in the car. Most of the students from Linjiang University who go out to play take this subway line to avoid meeting acquaintances. The two maintain this intimate posture, driving towards their destination stop by stop. Finally, the announcement sounded. Next stop, the affiliated hospital of Jiangnan Medical University. Hearing the name of this station, Lin Xingyi's body suddenly paused. Chen Yang noticed her change and asked softly, "What's wrong? Are you going to regret it?" Lin Xingyi shook her head and forced a smile. "Nothing, just a little nervous." Chen Yang shrugged. "Why are you so nervous? You've been here once before. And you're not going on a blind date besides. I'm sure the doctors will envy you if you have a handsome guy like me by your side." The two followed the crowd out of the carriage and left the crowded subway. Only then did Lin Xingyi realize that Chen Yang had been holding her wrist. Chen Yang pretended not to notice the embarrassment, pointed at the exit and said, "We're here, it's right in front. Don't tell me you want to go back one more stop?" The two followed the signs and soon arrived at the entrance of the affiliated hospital of Jiangxi Medical University. The towering hospital building stands before our eyes, and its cold white exterior walls look particularly solemn in the night. "We're here, can we let go now?" Lin Xingyi tried to break free from her hands to protest. But if Chen Yang wanted to keep holding her, there was nothing she could do. "I'm not as strong as him," It feels good. Chen Yang let go of Lin Xingyi's wrist. He wanted to try what it felt like to hold hands, but it wasn't quite right. Only couples do this, right? At this moment, Lin Xingyi suddenly stopped. She still has a psychological trauma about the hospital. Coming here means there is something wrong with her. Chen Yang looked at her gradually declining spirit, was silent for a moment, and then said, "How about we make a bet?" Lin Xingyi looked at him doubtfully. "What bet?" Chen Yang smiled and said, "I bet you'll come out in a better mood than when you went in. If I win, you have to treat me to a nice dinner. If I lose, how about I buy you lunch for a week?" Lin Xingyi was stunned for a moment. "Are you comforting me? If psychological counseling is effective, depression will be relieved. Even if it is not effective, there will be a reward from Chen Yang. What this means is that as long as you actively receive treatment, the results will always be good." Chen Yang made a hurt expression. "No, what do you think? Do you dare to bet?" Lin Xingyi shook her head, but the corners of her mouth rose slightly. "Okay, I'll do as you say." "That's settled then." Chen Yang clapped his hands. Let's go meet the psychiatrist. I want to see what level the psychiatrist is this time." Just like that, under the cover of night, Chen Yang and Xingyi walked into the hospital gate together. Giving Lin Xingyi the courage to come in is what Chen Yang really wants to achieve. In the hospital's waiting area, the smell of disinfectant filled every corner. Lin Xingyi sat on a hard metal chair, her eyes wandering around anxiously. Chen Yang leaned lazily on the back of his chair, looking indifferent. "Nervous?" Chen Yang turned his head to look at the girl who was at a loss beside him, with a teasing smile on his face. Lin Xingyi nodded slightly. "Well, a little bit. Look around you, everyone is frowning. It really affects your mood. Come, let me tell you a joke." Without waiting for Lin Xingyi to answer, Chen Yang started talking on his own. One day a bear walked into a restaurant. Lin Xingyi shook her head helplessly, but still listened carefully. Strangely enough, although the jokes Chen Yang told were not very funny and even a bit cold, Lin Xingyi felt that her nervousness was indeed relieved a lot. Just then, a nurse came over. "Lin Xingyi, it's your turn." Lin Xingyi stood up suddenly and looked at Chen Yang nervously. Chen Yang patted her shoulder and said, "Don't be afraid. I'll wait for you outside. Remember, if the doctor asks you what's on your mind, just say you have a crush on me, and I guarantee your illness will be cured in no time." Narcissism. She took a deep breath and followed the nurse to the consulting room. Chen Yang watched Xingyi leave, and the smile on his face slowly faded. He just hoped that this experience could really help her. Just as Chen Yang was daydreaming, the door of the clinic opened. He looked up and was stunned. "Cousin?" The person standing at the door was none other than his cousin, Xiao Qinghan. "Huh? No way, why would she be the psychologist this time?" Chen Yang began to worry about Lin Xingyi. If she fell into the hands of his cousin, he might make her even more depressed. Xiao Qinghan was wearing a white coat and his hair was neatly tied behind his head. He looked capable and professional. When she saw Chen Yang, her eyes instantly turned into crescents. "Hey, little Yang Yang?" Xiao Qinghan said with a smile, but soon returned to a professional expression. "Did the girl named Lin Xingyi come with you?" Chen Yang hadn't recovered from his shock yet. "Sister, aren't you studying for a doctorate in Yanjing?" "Why? Stinky boy, that happened many years ago. You graduated long ago." Xiao Qinghan made a hush gesture, indicating Chen Yang not to say any more here. She turned to Xingyi and said gently, "Student Lin, please come in." The moment Lin Xingyi followed the nurse into the consulting room, her heart beat so fast that it seemed like it was going to jump out of her chest. In the clinic, the elegant scent of lavender wafts slowly, and several landscape paintings full of warm colors hang on the wall. However, none of this seemed to ease Xingyi's inner tension. Dr. Xiao Qinghan sat on a comfortable single sofa with a gentle smile on his face. "Student Lin Xingyi, please take a seat." She pointed to the sofa opposite. Lin Xingyi sat down carefully. She looked at Xiao Qinghan secretly, and was secretly surprised that the doctor looked so young. Xiao Qinghan went straight to a PhD, and was only 27 years old when he graduated, which can be said to be very young. "Don't be nervous," Xiao Qinghan said gently. "We are just chatting casually today. You can call me Dr. Xiao." Lin Xingyi nodded slightly, but did not relax her vigilance against strangers. She remembered what Chen Yang said. "Remember, if the doctor asks you what's on your mind, just say you have a crush on me. I guarantee your illness will be cured in no time." Thinking of this, she couldn't help but smile slightly. "How shameless." Xiao Qinghan noticed the change in Lin Xingyi's expression. "It seems like you have thought of something happy. Would you like to share it with me?" Lin Xingyi suddenly came back to her senses and shook her head quickly. "No, nothing." Xiao's further. Xiao Qinghan did not ask further questions, but changed the subject. "Xingyi, what are your hobbies?" I like reading." Lin Xingyi hesitated for a moment, but still answered. "Oh, what kind of books?" Mostly literary works. I'm currently reading 100 Years of Solitude. Xiao Qinghan's eyes lit up. GRQZ's works are very profound. What do you think of this book? Lin Xingyi relaxed a little. I think the feeling of loneliness described in the book is sometimes very similar to what I feel. After saying this, she immediately became alert again, fearing that she had said too much. Xiao Qinghan nodded, without commenting immediately, but stood up and walked to the cabinet beside him. Xingyi, what do you think of painting? Lin Xingyi was a little confused. Drawing? Yes. Xiao Qinghan took out some painting tools. Sometimes, it's easier to express your inner feelings with a paintbrush than with words. Would you like to try it? Lin Xingyi hesitated for a moment, but finally nodded. Xiao Qinghan placed the drawing board, paper and crayons of various colors on the small table in front of Xingyi. You can draw whatever you want, don't worry about technique. Just express your feelings. If Chen Yang were to draw it, it would probably be a battle of stick figures. Lin Xingyi picked up the pen and stared at the blank paper, not knowing where to start. Countless images flashed through her mind. The rainy sky, the empty classroom, the dark abyss. Finally, she thought of the always smiling Chen Yang. The tip of the pen touched the paper, and Lin Xingyi began to scribble casually. She was not good at painting, but at this moment, she felt that the lines under her pen seemed to have life. Deep blue and gray interweave to form a gloomy background, all in cool colors. However, in a corner of the picture, a bright orange-yellow color jumps out of the paper. Xiao Qinghan quietly observed Xingyi's painting process, and occasionally wrote something in his notebook. About 20 minutes later, Lin Xingyi put down her pen. She looked at her work and fell into deep thought. Can you tell me about your paintings? Xiao Qinghan asked softly. Lin Xingyi pursed her lips and said, I'm not sure either. I just drew the picture in my mind. Xiao Qinghan pointed at the yellow part of the painting. What does this bright color represent? Lin Xingyi was silent for a while. Maybe it's hope, or maybe. Hope? Xiao Qian asked gently. Can you tell me more about it? Xingyi took a deep breath. It's just some things have changed in my life lately. And while it's still hard most of the time, sometimes it doesn't feel so bad. Xiao Qinghan nodded. This is a good start. Xingyi, everyone's life will have ups and downs. The key is to learn how to face those dark moments and cherish those bright moments. Lin Xingyi nodded thoughtfully, but there was still a hint of doubt in her eyes. Cherish the bright moments. Noticing Xingyi's hesitation, Xiao Qinghan smiled and said, Xingyi, treatment is a gradual process. Today is just our first meeting, don't put too much pressure on yourself. What matters is that you have taken the first step in seeking help. I forgot to tell you that the psychiatrist was on a business trip last time, so he handed you over to me, but don't worry, we can take it slow. Okay? Lin Xingyi hummed softly, but did not completely let down her guard. Xiao Qinghan continued. In the coming week, I hope you can spend a little time drawing every day. You don't need to deliberately pursue artistic quality. Just express your mood of the day with colors and lines. If you can't draw, you can record it in words. What do you think about looking at these paintings together next time we meet? Lin Xingyi hesitated for a moment. I can try. Good. Great. Xiao Qian, an encouraging smile. Remember, there is no right or wrong in this process. The key is not to fool yourself. The treatment time was soon up, and Lin Xingyi stood up, feeling a little relieved, but at the same time full of doubts. Xiao Qinghan walked her to the door. Xingyi, thank you for your cooperation today. See you next time. Lin Xingyi nodded, walked out of the clinic, and saw the familiar figure in the waiting area, leaning on the chair as if he was about to fall asleep while waiting. She suddenly felt relieved, and some new ideas emerged in her mind. Cherish hope? This pervert in front of me. Chen Yang noticed the movement and came forward. How is it? Is the doctor very fierce? Are you not scared by the doctor? Chen Yang probably recalled the precious memory of Xiao Qinghan taming him in the early days. Lin Xingyi shook her head. It's okay, I just drew a picture. Chen Yang raised his eyebrows. Drawing? That's too easy. Just draw a handsome picture for me, and write Chen Yang is the most handsome man in the world next to it. Lin Xingyi couldn't help but laugh. Her slightly upturned eyes were very lively, and she said angrily, Narcissist, pervert, scumbag. Swear more. I love to hear it. The two packed up their things and prepared to leave. Lin Xingyi looked at the sky through the window. The moon was exceptionally bright tonight. Chen Yang, Lin Xingyi suddenly spoke. Can I really get better? Chen Yang stopped. Of course, but it might take some time. Lin Xingyi nodded slightly, feeling a warm feeling in her heart. Although she still had doubts about the effectiveness of the treatment, at this moment, she felt that the future did not seem so scary. Chen Yang nodded, and was about to say something when Xiao Qinghan's voice came from behind him. Xiao Yang, can you come in for a moment? Chen Yang thought. It's over, I didn't say anything bad about her just now and got caught. Chapter 21. How did you get to the subway with a girl during the postgraduate entrance examination? Chen Yang was stunned for a moment, then said to Xingyi, "Don't move around here, I'll be there soon." Walking into the clinic and closing the door, Chen Yang took a deep breath. "Sister, what's going on? Shouldn't you be in Yanjing? Come on, I'll be graduating when you take the college entrance exam." Xiao Qinghan made a pitiful and hurt expression. "I'm sad. I loved you in vain, you don't care about me at all." Then the painting style changed, and he smiled again. "I should be the one asking you this, Xiao Yang. How did you get involved with a depressed patient?" Chen Yang scratched his head. "That's a long story." Xiao Qinghan looked at his watch. "I have 10 minutes left before my break, come on, give me the short version." Chen Yang hesitated for a moment, and finally simply recounted the story between himself and Lin Xingyi. However, 10 minutes was not enough, so he did not finish. Of course, he concealed the details of his hooliganism and only said that he was helping a classmate who was in trouble. How about it? Saving a life is great, isn't it? Chen Yang had an expression that looked like he was begging for praise. After listening to this, Xiao Qinghan nodded thoughtfully. "It is indeed great. But the latter is the key point. But do you know what you're doing?" Chen Yang lowered his head somewhat guiltily. I was just trying to help her." Xiao Qinghan sighed. "I know you mean well, but depression is not as simple as you think. If not handled properly, it may make the condition worse." Chen Yang raised his head. "No way, I think she is much better than before. So what should I do?" Xiao Qinghan pondered for a while. "You just need to stay as you are and give her support and understanding. But professional treatment still depends on psychologists like us." She paused. "Also, Xiao Yang, you have to protect yourself. In this situation, it's easy for the other person to become dependent or have other complicated feelings. If someone insists on you in the future, can you take responsibility?" Chen Yang felt his heart skip a beat. "Sister, what are you talking about?" Chen Yang thought to himself that he didn't hold hands, didn't kiss, and didn't do anything, so why was he being held responsible? Xiao Qinghan gave his cousin a meaningful look. Okay. Time's up, we'll talk later." Walking out of the clinic, Chen Yang felt his mind was even more confused. He saw Lin Xingyi still waiting outside, so he forced himself to smile. "Let's go back." Lin Xingyi looked at Chen Yang in confusion. "Are you okay? You don't look well." Chen Yang waved his hands. It's okay. It may be because I haven't exercised for too long and I am exhausted." "Oh, right," he suddenly remembered something about our bet. "Do you feel better now than when you came here?" Lin Xingyi was stunned for a moment, then smiled faintly. "Well, it seems to be a little better." Chen Yang cheered exaggerated. "Great, that means I won." Chen Yang bet that a meal would cost at most 10 to 20 yuan for instant noodles, and he wouldn't want more. Lin Xingyi silently kept this in mind. The two continued to walk forward, the moonlight shining on them, casting the shadows side by side on the ground. Lin Xingyi secretly glanced at Chen Yang and thought, perhaps this is the bright color in the painting. It was a dark night, and the street lights outside the hospital entrance stretched the shadows of Chen Yang and Lin Xingyi very long. The two walked side by side on the way back to school, and there was an indescribable atmosphere in the air. Chen Yang looked at his phone, and it was already past 10 o'clock. Chen Yang secretly glanced at Xingyi, and saw that she was frowning slightly, as if she was still thinking about something. He cleared his throat and broke the silence. Xingyi, how do you feel about today's psychological consultation?" Lin Xingyi shook her head slightly. "It's hard to say whether it's good or bad. It's just a little weird." Chen Yang raised his eyebrows. "Strange? How strange?" She paused. "I just haven't seen it before. And someone drawing for me." Chen Yang nodded thoughtfully, not knowing what kind of treatment his cousin was using. He suddenly said seriously, "Xingyi, I have always wanted to tell you something." Lin Xingyi looked at Chen Yang with some surprise. It was rare to see him so serious. "You know, I think depression is all about staying away from people and things that make you unhappy," Chen Yang said, with a barely perceptible concern in his tone. "That's why I suggest you go home less often, and ignore your parents' advice." Lin Xingyi was stunned. "But they are my parents after all." Chen Yang waved his hands. I know. But the most important thing now is you. You have to live your college life seriously and enjoy this time. It won't be too late to deal with those complicated family relationships after you recover from your illness." Lin Xingyi lowered her head and remained silent. Chen Yang's words were like a stone, stirring up ripples in her heart. "By the way," Chen Yang brought up the point, "I have another suggestion. What do you think about joining some clubs?" Lin Xingyi raised her head and looked at Chen Yang with some confusion. She never has the courage to try new things. Lin Xingyi now feels that it is good enough that Chen Yang can accompany her like this and have lunch with him at noon. Chen Yang felt that Lin Xinyi's social circle should not consist of just him. Think about it, Chen Yang said patiently. Joining a club allows you to meet more people and participate in interesting activities. Maybe you can even discover a new interest of yours. Isn't that better than staying stuck in the house all day? Lin Xingyi hesitated for a moment, but I'm not very good at dealing with strangers. It's okay, I'm here. I promise you'll have fun. Lin Xingyi looked at Chen Yang's smiling face and felt a warm feeling in her heart. She asked softly, so can you come with me? This was Chen Yang's original plan. He wanted to be with her at first and see if he could gradually let go later. It's just like learning to ride a bike. If you feel like there's someone supporting you from behind, you might learn it naturally. Of course, how can I feel at ease without me watching over you? Then I will reluctantly agree. I heard that if you spend a long time with someone, your speaking style will become like theirs. Chen Yang felt a little relieved when he saw Lin Xingyi's expression, which was slightly more lively than before. At least it shows. I'm willing to give it a try. Why are you staring at me again? It's nice and pleasing to the eyes. Rogue. It's quite comfortable to take the subway at this time. Chen Yang stretched. At least I don't have to worry about being squeezed into a meat patty. Just then, the subway came and there were not many people in the carriage. So Chen Yang could sit wherever he wanted. Chen Yang breathed a sigh of relief. I am really exhausted today. Lin Xingyi shook her head. Why are you tired? I was the one who went to see a psychiatrist. While the two were chatting and laughing, Chen Yang suddenly heard a familiar voice. Fuck, isn't that Chen Yang? Chen Yang turned around suddenly and saw his three roommates who had just entered the carriage, standing not far away. Ji Baqiu, Liu Daonji and Fu Qin. The expressions of the three people are wonderful, including shock, anger, grievance, and horror. Didn't this kid say he was in the library preparing for the postgraduate entrance exam? Chapter 20. The first priority is to help Chen Yang catch the girl. Ji Baqiu's yellow hair stood out in the crowd. He stared at Chen Yang and Lin Xingyi with wide eyes. His mouth opened wide enough to fit an egg. Old Chen. When did Godfather hook up with a beautiful woman? Chen Yang ruined my dream of being the first person in 306 to get out of singlehood. Several people looked at Lin Xingyi not far away. Two others, she seemed to have a low pressure all her own. So cold that people dared not approach her. But now she happened to be sitting next to Chen Yang, with a faint smile on her lips. This fact made the three people stare in disbelief. Could he be from another school, the medical university or agricultural university next door? Liu Daonji sucked in a breath of cold air, his strong muscles bulging under his work e-shirt, as if he was ready to rush over and punch Chen Yang at any time. Fu Qin pushed his glasses up with an I knew it expression on his face. I am afraid of my brother's suffering, and I am also afraid of my brother's. The three of them looked at each other and finally knew what to do and didn't come over to act as a light bulb. But the burning gaze seemed to burn a hole in Chen Yang's body. Chen Yang secretly thought that this was not good, knowing that he would be interrogated when he returned to the dormitory tonight. He turned to look at Lin Xingyi, and found that she was looking at him with confusion. What's wrong? Lin Xingyi asked. Is it your friend? Chen Yang laughed, dryly twice. Oh yeah, friend. Lin Xingyi looked at the three people curiously like a kitten, then looked at Chen Yang. Why are they looking at you? Chen Yang scratched his head. Maybe you didn't expect to meet me here. Lin Xingyi nodded thoughtfully and didn't ask any more questions. The subway continued to move forward, and a strange atmosphere filled the carriage. Chen Yang could feel his roommate's eyes looking at him from time to time. But every time he turned his head, the three of them pretended to be chatting or looking at their phones. Chen Yang. Lin Xingyi suddenly spoke. You mentioned a club. Do you have any suggestions? Chen Yang felt as if he had been pardoned, and quickly diverted his attention. I heard there's an interesting club called Food Club, where you can make your own food and sell it in school. Let's go check it out together. Just then, the subway arrived at the station. Chen Yang and Lin Xingyi walked out of the carriage, followed closely by their three roommates. The two parted at the south fifth gate. Then see you tomorrow? Lin Xingyi felt a little reluctant. Chen Yang nodded. Well, see you tomorrow. Have a good rest and don't think too much. Watching Lin Xingyi's back disappear, Chen Yang took a deep breath and turned to face three faces full of gossip not far away. Hey, isn't this our love saint Chen Yang? Ji Baqiu spoke first, his tone full of teasing. He knew that it was definitely not a simple matter for Chen Yang to help him get Chen Shuying out right away. Liu Daonji folded his arms. Brother, do you have anything to tell us? Fu Qin pushed his glasses up. I've been feeling that your behavior has been unusual lately. Who would take the postgraduate entrance exam as a freshman? It turns out there's something going on. Chen Yang smiled bitterly and waved his hands. Don't guess, things are not what you think. Oh? The three of them said in unison. What's that? Chen Yang looked around. This is not the place to talk. Let's go back to the dormitory and talk. The three of them exchanged glances and nodded. On the way back to the dormitory, Chen Yang's mind was working rapidly, thinking about how to explain this matter to his roommates. He knew that there would probably be a tough battle ahead. The campus was quiet late at night, with only the occasional chirping of insects breaking the tranquility. Chen Yang and his three roommates were walking on the way back to the dormitory. There was an indescribable atmosphere in the air. Ji Bakyu felt like there were ants crawling in his heart, and he couldn't stand it anymore. Old Chen, don't waste time. Explain quickly. Chen Yang knew that he had to play dumb at this time. What's there to explain? Didn't we just meet by chance? Liu Daonji couldn't help it and hugged Chen Yang's neck. Don't give me that. Who was that girl just now? When did you hook up with her? Fu Qin pushed his glasses up, looking serious. We have a right to know the truth. Chen Yang smiled bitterly, and broke free from Liu Daonji's clutches. Okay, I'll tell you, but let's go back to the dormitory first. It's weird to stand on the side of the road and talk in the middle of the night. Passing by the school supermarket, Chen Yang bought 4 buckets of instant noodles without saying a word. Hush money. Oh, so generous today. Ji Bakyu raised his eyebrows. Back in the dormitory, Chen Yang sat on the bed and took a deep breath. It's no big deal actually. The girl's name is Lin Xingyi. She is from the computer department of our school. We met by chance. Accidental? Fu Qin asked. How is it a coincidence? Chen Yang hesitated for a moment, recalling his first meeting with Lin Xingyi on the rooftop. But he thought it would be better not to tell his roommates about these things. We just met by chance in the library, you know. I've been studying hard for the postgraduate entrance exam in the library recently. Chen Yang made up a reason. She was looking for a book, and I happened to help her. Chen Yang still couldn't forget his excuse for taking the postgraduate entrance examination. Ji Bakyu looked unconvinced. Is it that simple? Chen Yang nodded. It was that simple. I boldly asked for his WeChat account. And we got along very well, we often studied together. Ji Bakyu seemed to be convinced and echoed. Sure enough, only when you take the initiative can there be a story. Each of the 4 people held a bucket of instant noodles, and the aroma instantly filled the entire room. Honestly, Ji Bakyu said as he slurped his noodles, that Lin Xingyi is really pretty. Although we didn't see her clearly, her temperament is better than any school beauties mentioned on the forum. Liu Daonji echoed. Yes, Lao Chen, you are very lucky. Fu Qin pushed his glasses up. But what is your relationship now? It seems quite close. Chen Yang lowered his head and ate instant noodles. He could only find an excuse to deal with his brothers and said softly, actually, I'm still pursuing it. What? The 3 of them said in unison. Looking at Chen Yang in surprise, Ji Bakyu looked incredible. Really? You went out on a date so late at night, and you still haven't gotten her? Yeah, Lao Chen, don't meet a scumbag girl who raises fish. Chen Yang smiled bitterly. He didn't want to tell his roommates about accompanying Lin Xingyi to see a psychiatrist. He would have to explain a lot to her. She is more special and harder to pursue. Right? Liu Daonji became interested. Special? How special? Chen Yang thought of Xingyi's depression, but he couldn't tell his roommates about it. It's just that she's more introverted and not very good at socializing with people, Chen Yang said carefully. So you have to take your time and not rush it. Fu Qin nodded thoughtfully. I see, but Chen Yang, you have to work harder, you can't let others get ahead of such a beautiful girl. Ji Bakyu suddenly slapped his thigh. That's right. Chen Yang, if you can take down that girl, it will be a great honor for our dormitory. When you go out, you have to pay for your living expenses yourself. Chen Yang didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She and I are just ordinary friends now. Don't make blind guesses. Oh, don't be modest. Ji Bakyu said. We can all see that you're interested in her, isn't that right? Guys? Liu Daonji and Fu Qin nodded. It's meaningless. Would you go out on a date late at night? Chen Yang shook his head helplessly. Okay, if you say so, then so be it, but I warn you. Don't spread it around. The 3 of them made a zipper-like motion. Don't worry, we're keeping our mouths shut. Yes. Fu Qin is always gossiping. Where did you go tonight? Why did you come back so late? Chen Yang was stunned for a moment, then said. Oh, just go to the library to study. She was preparing for a competition recently. So she studied late and went out to eat a meal afterwards. Liu Daonji patted Chen Yang on the shoulder. Brother, we support you if you need any help, just let us know. Dormitory 306 made it a top priority for Chen Yang to catch the girl. Although this is not the case at all. Chapter 23 Late Night Call. As the night deepened, only the dim lights of some electrical appliances remained in the dormitory. Ji Bakyu was excitedly sharing his story with Shen Shuying with Fu Qin. But Yu Daonji had already fallen asleep. It has to be said that people who exercise are more self-disciplined in their work and dressed schedules. A rapid cell phone ring broke the silence. Chen Yang fumbled to pick up his phone. And the screen showed a call reminder from his cousin. He was stunned for a moment, then sat up and pressed the answer button. Why are you calling so late? Hello, sis? Chen Yang said in a low voice. Xiao Yang, start the video. Xiao Chan's voice came from the phone. Chen Yang hesitated for a moment, but still clicked the video call button. Xiao Qinghan's familiar face appeared on the screen, with a home environment as the background. Why aren't you sleeping so late? Xiao Qinghan asked straight to the point. Chen Yang laughed dryly. Aren't we just getting ready for bed? You're up pretty late too. Sister. Xiao Qinghan raised his eyebrows. I have something to ask you. At this moment, Fu Qin's voice suddenly sounded. Wow. Chen Yang, who is this beautiful lady? Why is there another beauty here? Lao Chen, I strongly condemn you. Chen Yang then realized that at some point, his 3 roommates had come over, and were staring at the phone screen curiously. Liu Daonji was even awakened by the noise. Hey, what are you doing? Chen Yang said hurriedly, this is my cousin. Cousin? Liu Daonji said in disbelief, are you kidding me? How can someone be so young and pretty? Chen Yang didn't dare tell his roommates that this was an aunt who was almost 30 years old, for fear that she would be bullied by her sister in the future. Fu Qin pushed his glasses and said thoughtfully, however, if you look closely, he does look somewhat similar to Chen Yang. Their eyebrows are very similar, both are sword-like eyebrows. Although Xiao Qinghan is a woman, she has a bit of heroic spirit. Xiao Qinghan looked at the 4 big boys huddled together on the screen and couldn't help laughing. It seems like Xiao Yang is having a great time at school. Chen Yang smiled awkwardly. Sister, what do you want to talk to me about? Xiao Qinghan's expression suddenly became serious. It's about that girl named Lin Xingyi. What's going on between you and her? There isn't enough time during the day, so let's talk now. Chen Yang was shocked and said hurriedly. Sister, this is a long story. I'll go to the balcony first, and we can talk alone. Before his roommates could react, Chen Yang had already slipped out of the dormitory and came to the balcony. The late night wind blowing on his face calmed him down a little. Seeing that someone was making a phone call, the roommates stopped bothering him and turned to listen to Ji Bakyu excitedly talking about him and Shen Shuying. Okay, now you can tell me? Xiao Qinghan's voice came from the phone, with a tone that left no room for doubt. Chen Yang took a deep breath and briefly recounted what he had not had time to explain during the day. Of course, he still omitted some details. Xiao Qinghan listened, and quietly and remained silent for a long time. Finally, she spoke. Xiao Yang, do you know what you are doing? Of course I know. Chen Yang's tone was non-committal. Xiao Qinghan also knew Chen Yang's temper, although he could bully him when he was a child. He couldn't persuade him. Xiao Qinghan sighed. I know you mean well. But depression is not as simple as you think if not handled properly. It can make the condition worse. More importantly, she paused. I'm most afraid that you'll get hurt. Chen Yang felt a palpitation. Sister, what do you mean? Chen Yang couldn't help but recall his childhood memories. At that time, no matter he was bullied or got into trouble, he always faced it alone stubbornly, and every time, before he reported it to his parents, his cousin would come forward to help him solve the problem. But sister, this time is different. Chen Yang whispered. She really needs help. Xiao Qinghan's voice was a little helpless. I'm afraid you'll put yourself in a dangerous situation. Chen Yang felt a little flustered. Danger? What does that mean? At this moment, a message popped up on the top of Chen Yang's phone. Lin Xingyi, good night. In the rental house, Lin Xingyi curled up in her warm quilt like a lazy kitten, with a pillow between her long legs, lying on her side and staring at her phone. As soon as Chen Yang replied, she went to sleep. While listening to Xiao Qinghan's explanation, Chen Yang replied, good night, go to bed early. Xiao Qinghan explained. First, you may unconsciously develop a savior complex, feeling that you have to save her. This will not only bring you tremendous psychological pressure, but may also make Lin Xingyi dependent on you. Second, you may neglect your own emotional needs and focus all your energy on taking care of her, which can lead to emotional problems of your own over time. Also, have you ever thought about how you would deal with it if the other person can't leave you in the future? That girl is pretty, but I don't know what her personality is like. I don't mind having her as my brother's wife. Xiao Qinghan didn't forget to tease him. Chen Yang was silent. He had never thought about these questions. His idea was simple, to help Lin Xingyi cure her depression and stop her from having thoughts of committing suicide. As for the rest, Xiao Qinghan continued. More importantly, if you actually develop feelings for her during treatment, that can make the situation more complicated. You have to understand that the current Lin Xingyi may not be the real her. When she recovers, the relationship between you may change. Seeing Chen Yang remain silent, Xiao Qinghan continued. Your support is important to Lin Xingyi now, but as she recovers, You may need to consider how to adjust your relationship. Adjust the relationship? What do you mean exactly? Chen Yang asked, his tone filled with caution and curiosity. For example, Xiao Qian explained, after her condition improves, you can consider whether to gradually reduce your involvement. This doesn't mean you should completely leave her life, but it means giving her more space to rebuild her social circle and develop the ability to face life independently. Chen Yang thought about it seriously for a while, and this idea seemed to coincide with his. If Lin Xingyi recovers from depression, and the other party doesn't need me so much, or even rejects me, I will gradually fade away and just be an ordinary friend. Xiao Qinghan added the last sentence, how you choose depends on your own judgment. Yeah, it's pretty much what I thought. Chen Yang looked serious. Not his usual nonchalant look. I thought you wanted to seduce her because she's pretty. Xiao Qinghan squeezed his eyebrows cutely. She is almost 30 years old, but she still acts like a little girl. If Chen Yang really fell in love with Lin Xingyi, he would not let go easily even if she recovered from depression and had her own life. The worst that could happen was that he would start pursuing her from scratch. What if, Chen Yang asked, what if I decided to gradually reduce my participation? What should I do specifically? You can start with something small. Xiao Qinghan said, for example, encourage her to participate in more social activities and meet new friends. Slowly, let her understand that she should not rely on one person. However, this process needs to be gradual, not too sudden, so as not to make her feel disconnected. Chen Yang nodded to show his understanding. I understand. Xiao Qinghan smiled, you have grown up. Xiao Yang, I believe you can handle this matter. Remember, if you have any questions or need help, I'm always available. Things went more smoothly than Xiao Qinghan had expected. He was afraid that Chen Yang would be stubborn and do something to hurt the patient. It's really difficult to have a cousin who I watch grow up on one side and a patient of my own on the other. In the rental house, Lin Xingyi received a reply, turned off her phone and prepared to go to bed, but then she remembered that she had not taken her medicine yet. The white and tender legs stretched out from the quilt, revealing the cute toes. I got up and took a sedative antidepressant. She remembered the night when Chen Yang accompanied her to see a psychiatrist. He blocked the crowded crowd for him and encouraged her not to be afraid of the hospital. He works so hard, I must get better soon, Lin Xingyi thought. Chapter 24 I'm not afraid when you're with me. The next morning, Chen Yang yawned and was about to get out of bed, when he suddenly heard a shy cough coming from under the bed. Him that Chen Yang. Chen Yang looked back and found that Fu Qin had changed his usual behavior, and was standing beside his bed with a troubled look on his face. What's wrong? Is there anything wrong so early in the morning? Chen Yang asked vigilantly. There is no game without early action. There must be fraud. Fu Qin pushed his glasses and said hesitantly, can I have your cousin's contact information? Chen Yang was stunned for a moment, then burst into laughter. Hey Fu, I treat you as a brother, but you want to be my brother-in-law? Fu Qin's face instantly turned red like a ripe apple. I don't mean that, I just think your cousin is very knowledgeable, and I want to ask you some academic questions. Chen Yang patted Fu Qin on the shoulder and said seriously, brother, I advise you not to think about it. My cousin has only been studying for a doctorate for a year or two. She is almost 30 years old, and she is a very busy person now. You should study hard. A girl 3 years older than you holds a gold brick. A girl 6 years older than you holds 2. A girl 7 years older than you, they are inseparable. A girl 8 years older than you, they live every day. A girl 9 years older than you, they live forever. 30? I can't tell. After listening to this, Fu Qin's face showed a mixture of loss and relief, and he returned to his seat silently. Chen Yang didn't expect that his stupid son actually wanted to get closer to him. Isn't this a mess of generations? Chen Yang looked at Fu Qin's back, and laughed secretly in his heart. On the other side, Ji Bakyu was holding his mobile phone and chatting with Shen Shuying, while complaining about the school's broadband restriction equipment. One broadband account is limited to 2 devices if you want to use a tablet. You have to disconnect the computer or mobile phone from the internet. That's all. It still costs 90 yuan a month, although the Wi-Fi 6 speed is really good. Chen Yang thought of the conversation with his cousin last night and couldn't help but feel emotional. At lunchtime, Chen Yang walked towards the teaching building where Lin Xingyi was taking classes. Yes, you still have to attend classes after the final exams. College has this boring thing called mini-semester, which is just to keep you under control for a few weeks. Sadly, Chen Yang failed one subject, college physics, and only got 58 points. If the teacher doesn't work hard, the students will only feel sad. On the way, Chen Yang passed by the girls' dormitory area. He noticed that there were several boys standing downstairs, some leaning against a tree, some looking down at their phones, and they all looked like they were waiting for someone. Chen Yang thought that these people were probably here to pick up their girlfriends. Soon, Chen Yang arrived at the teaching building where Lin Xingyi was. He saw Lin Xingyi standing at the entrance of the building from afar. Chen Yang noticed that she seemed to look better today than before, and even had a faint smile on her face. It might be because when Chen Yang walked over, Lin Xingyi had already seen him first. Her long, smooth and warm hair has a faint luster, and her fair and delicate face is filled with youthful energy. Chen Yang couldn't help but feel a little dazed. This girl seemed to be more beautiful than before. Sure enough, she looks better when she smiles. Star Ripple. Chen Yang waved his hand and walked over quickly. Hearing Chen Yang's voice, Lin Xingyi narrowed her foxy eyes slightly, and the corners of her mouth turned up. That smile seemed to be able to melt the ice and snow. Chen Yang's heart beat faster involuntarily. At the same time, there is also a sense of accomplishment in the development system. From being shrouded in gloom at the beginning, it is now gradually regaining vitality. Chen Yang, you're here. Lin Xingyi's voice was as gentle as a spring breeze, gently touching Chen Yang's heart, making Chen Yang feel a little tingling. After all, Chen Yang was still a young boy, and seeing such a scene, how could he not be moved? He could only pretend to be calm, maintain his usual appearance, and casually said, I just passed by the girls' dormitory and saw a lot of boys waiting for people there. It seems that I'm not the only one here to pick someone up for dinner. When Lin Xingyi heard this, a faint blush appeared at the corners of her eyes, and she said softly, We are different. The more he tried to stay calm, the harder it seemed the breeze brushed over the two of them, allowing Chen Yang to easily smell the fragrance of Lin Xingyi's hair, a faint scent of jasmine. Chen Yang even wanted to take a deep breath and enjoy it. I can't go on like this, so I quickly changed the subject. Let's go. What are we going to eat today? The cafeteria or going out? The two walked side by side on the path on campus, and Chen Yang kept a proper distance, neither too close nor too distant. Lin Xingyi also noticed that when she was in a bad mood, Chen Yang would act a little rogue. When he was in a good mood, Chen Yang would act like a normal boy and get along with her. Now he looks like an innocent boy. Xingyi, Chen Yang asked, are there any happy things these days? Lin Xingyi thought about it, her eyes sparkling, with her naturally charming fox eyes. She looked quite pretty, and her eyebrows were also gentle and smart. Yes, you accompanied me to see the psychiatrist that day. Although I was a little nervous, I wasn't afraid because you were there. One day we went to the library to study together, and you had a problem with a question. So I helped you figure it out. It turns out I can help you too. When Lin Xingyi spoke, the little canine tooth on her left side was exposed, as if to indicate that her owner was in a really good mood. As she spoke, Lin Xingyi's voice became lower and lower, but Chen Yang still listened carefully. As Chen Yang listened, a hint of bitterness rose in his heart. How come all these happy things are related to me? He thought of his cousin's words and couldn't help but feel worried. Xingyi, Chen Yang said softly, you look really beautiful when you smile. There was a breeze blowing through the trees on campus, and Lin Xingyi thought Chen Yang was going to say something to confess his love again. The jade's smooth toes hidden and the white socks of sneakers twisted nervously twice, and fine beads of sweat oozed out of the palms of her hands. This scoundrel is always so flamboyant, and every time he makes his face turn red. When Lin Xingyi heard this, a blush appeared on the tip of her nose, and stars seemed to twinkle in her eyes. Really? This time, Chen Yang didn't intend to say anything rude. He sincerely encouraged the girl to smile more. It helps with his condition, and it also helps his eyes. Killing two birds with one stone. Chen Yang nodded and said seriously, really so, smile more, not just for me, but for every good thing in life. Lin Xingyi seemed a little puzzled, but still nodded. Yes, I will. The two came to the cafeteria, and Chen Yang skillfully ordered two meals. After sitting down, he watched Lin Xingyi open her rosy little mouth, her white teeth moving slightly, and eat in small bites. The first time I had dinner with her, her lips were pale and broken. This kind of nurturing feeling is really great. Xingyi, Chen Yang said softly, remember what we talked about before about joining a club? Yeah, I remember you said you'd take me there. Chen Yang smiled. That's right, actually, there is a club recruitment activity at school this afternoon. It should not be over yet. Let's go and take a look after dinner. Right? Okay. Lin Xingyi has always kept this matter in mind, and is even looking forward to it. She gradually fell in love with the process of trying new things with Chen Yang. Lin Xingyi thought for a moment. That photography club is quite interesting. I've always wanted to learn how to take beautiful photos. And that food club you mentioned. Chen Yang nodded. Okay, then let's look at a few more. Lin Xingyi said nervously. What? I'm not very good at talking to strangers. What if they don't like me? Chen Yang was not worried about this at all. After all, who doesn't like beautiful girls, no matter if they are girls or girls? Don't worry, our beautiful Lady Xing will definitely make flowers bloom wherever she goes. Moreover, the club will definitely recruit as many new members as possible, so there is no need to worry about being rejected. Lin Xingyi took a deep breath, clenched her fists, and secretly encouraged herself. With Chen Yang here, there will be no problem, I will work hard. Chen Yang looked at her and saw that she had stopped eating, clenched her fists, and blinked her eyes, and her expression seemed to be firmer. With such a determined look in her eyes, could it be that she is thinking of joining the party? But if you meet someone who doesn't look comfortable, just say no boldly, there's no need to force yourself. Chen Yang added. That's settled then, Chen Yang said. We'll go check out the club after dinner. You'll love it. You might even discover a new interest of yours. Okay. I won't be afraid as long as you are with me. There was a hint of excitement in Lin Xingyi's tone that she had never heard of before. When Chen Yang heard this, he felt a little complicated. I hope you can live a good life on your own. He knew that